My name's David Haynes, and wow, the reason why I joined the military, actually joined the Navy, and shortly after I graduated from high school. I was married, didn't really have a job, and was just trying to find something that would get me to the point of I need some education. So I was talked with my wife, and I said, okay, the best thing I could do is, join the Navy. This is in '88. I graduated in '86, so it was a couple of years later. I wanted to see the world. I mean, I've always had a desire to see other countries, other places, and things like that. Could I have done it in other branches of service? Possibly. For me, it was more of I wanted to see Korea. I wanted to see Japan. I wanted to experience the world. I wanted to see what it was all about, different cultures, different lives. So that's really the main reason why I wanted to join just the Navy. So I joined the Navy in '86 in order to better myself, get the education, and just maybe a little bit of structure. And so I went into boot camp and become a boiler technician. So I was a boiler technician in the Navy for a total of 5 years, from '88 to '93. I served on the USS Anchorage and also in the USS Fort Fisher as a boiler technician, and I topped out as a BT3 or E5. So, but that's really what I did. Of course, during the right in the beginning, I did my first tour and my first deployment, and I went overseas. Went to Philippines, went to Korea, and all those things as my first deployment. Just kind of getting to know, what it is. Getting my education, I guess you would say. And then shortly after that, it was about. I can't remember. It was like '91, I believe. It was Desert Storm was coming in, and our ship was deployed to Desert Storm as well. So we sat in the Persian Gulf, nice and hot. That was definitely when you have right there in the middle of a war zone, and we just went to we're off the coast of Kuwait. Dropped off our Marines and went to shore, and we sat out there in the middle of the Gulf. So that's part of it, But when you're in engineering or engineering department, there's not much that you can see, much you can do. It's hot, it's sweaty. Oh, I can tell you a story here. This is so we're with our seventh med edition. Oh, what do they call that? Seventh Med Expeditionary Group. And what we did, we were doing high-speed turns, staying up with the group, trying to go as fast as possible to get to the Persian Gulf. And we were switching our generators. Lost power, so the whole ship went completely dark. And like I said, it's hot, it's sweaty. You're in this mechanical room, just trying to, get to your location. No power, no air, nothing. And they tried to start the emergency diesel generator. Did not start. So we went ahead and we did something that was kind of really unusual. Usually have usual sequence of operation to get things going. But we had to stop that and go into what we could do the best to get our steam going again, to get the electricity going again, and bring the ship back up. So I was the upper level man, which I just watch the boiler levels and monitor and stuff like that. We've got fans going, fans that supply the air to the boiler. We've got fuel going to the boiler with no electricity, just residual steam in the boiler. Fires are going. All this is really happening. And we're starting to bring this boiler up. We're firing it up and all right, we got steam pressure, 600 pounds of steam pressure on the boiler with no electricity, which is great. This is what it's designed to do. And the hardest thing about it, they had a manual crank on the electric generator. So they're cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking. Couldn't get enough oil pressure on the emergency steam generator for the and so so really we did not have the chance to get the steam up and going just because of that, just because you just didn't have enough manpower to turn that crank to get the pressure up. So that's when we're talking about heat and hot and sweaty. I probably won't kid you. I'm sure the temperatures in that space was probably like 130, 140 degrees, 100% humidity just raining down on you. It's really, it was an experience there. Boilers are what they do. There's steam generation. Oh, I'm thinking like a pressure cooker, in a rough way. You boil your water. You have it under pressure, and what it does, of course, you release your steam. And what the steam does, it turns the turbines, it turns the motors for the ship. So it turns the steam generator motors, so you can propel it through the water. They don't really do that much nowadays. A lot of the generators are nuclear generators. Same process, using steam, using high pressure steam to turn the generators. But boilers are kind of going by the wayside a little bit more because they're inefficient. It takes a long time to bring them up online. Nowadays they use like gas turbine engines. They were just starting that a little bit when I was in. But the gas turbines are exactly what they use like on jet engines. You can turn those things on, hit a button, away you go. Boilers take much longer. For us, it took about approximately, I would say, if I remember right, about 8 hours just to get everything up and going. This is just one of those immediate things. So really the boilers are just high pressure cookers. It's a good, easy way to put it. I had a really close friend. Actually, I'm still in contact with quite a few of them, through Facebook. But he was the BT1, who was the first class, or E5, that we spent a lot of time together. And he mentored me quite a bit in order how to, to do the work. He really showed that that to become a leader, a driver, someone who really helped me out grow a little bit more. It was one of those guys that really was able to help me out along the way. I don't know if he's still around or not, but he stayed out in California. Wow, experiences I could have with him. He's just one of these guys who was really wide open, that I was able to talk to and just open up with him. Yeah, he's really a great guy. I mean, I can't really mention names right now because I don't know if he's still around or not. He was a mentor to me. Another good one. I love this guy. He had he had a personality that was really, that draws you to him. And it's still one of these guys that I really love to hang with today. And he, I don't know how many hours I don't know, being in the Philippines or being overseas, you're young and doing some stupid stuff. And, him and I, we did some pretty stupid stuff together. But that's part of being overseas and being young. But he was, couldn't really tell you any specific instances, but he was another one that had a good time with. And he lives in Ohio. I think it was Canton, Ohio. But still a part of the whole group that is really fun to hang around with. You always have the group of men that you hang around, and at least I'm really glad for Facebook. At least we can stay in contact a little bit more and more. Here's a story for you. So I let's see. I got my E4, so going from a seaman to an actual petty officer. And one of the things that they do is they tack on your crow. And so as somebody who is very new, very green, and I've only been on the ship for probably 6, maybe 8 months, and I'm already getting my petty officer. It's because I scored very high on my test, so I was able to get that sooner than anybody else. So anyhow, so I get my crow, and I'm trying to hide out as much as possible, because what people do, anybody who is pretty much E4 and above, they tack on your crow. They kind of grab you around your arm right here and make sure that crow doesn't fly away. Machinist mate, just in the berthing, I stayed away from him as much as possible. His arms are like this big around, Mr. Hawaii, big guy. I was purposely not trying to find this guy. So they give you about 2 to 3 days, and then things pretty much die off. So I'm thinking, all right, this has been 3 days. Everything's good to go. And I walk through and he goes, Haynes, yeah? Haven't tacked that crow on yet. Okay, all right, let's get it done. And he grabs hold of my arm, just nice and tight. His fist reached all the way up to the ceiling. He's just got this big span, and he goes, wow! He hits my arm, and it just, I'm just like, okay, thank you, it's all good. So I start moving my arm around. I was like, man, that really hurt. He hit me so hard that actually it cracked my bone here, and I didn't find that out until probably about 4 months later, because the calcium buildup started to go into build across that. So that was part of the growing up, I guess you would say. But I think about another one is what's his name, Peterson. We would just shortly after that, my arms, it's black and blue. It's hurting really bad. And he would sit next to me right there in the boiler front. And he'd go, Haynes. I go, what? He goes, BAP! Oh! So it would be like that. Just, I said, you're not supposed to tack my crow on. I don't care. Yeah, it's okay. I understand. But it's just that fun little thing that we do. It's kind of weird for me doing 5 years, but I wanted to extend my tour just a little bit longer. A lot of people on my ship, or a lot of people that I knew, said, you're going to be alive. You're going to stay there for 20 years. And I'm just going, I just really don't like to sweat the small stuff. Of course, being in the Navy or the military, all those attention to detail, the rules, the regulations, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know if that's really for me. But finally at about 4 years, I decided to extend for just maybe 1 year longer to see if I wanted to. And that I was pretty much done. I got my, I got a lot of medals and, from being in the war and whatnot, but that's not the point. It's more of, I was done. I wanted to get out and, get back to the Midwest life. Living in California wasn't, it's pretty crowded and it's fast paced and things like that. But I just wanted to get back and raise my family in the Midwestern life. That's what I wanted to do. Because I love Iowa. I know you're probably going to say that, but I was born and raised in Nebraska. I used to work at the University of Nebraska as well. So guess what? I am a Husker fan. I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh no. A lot of people here do exactly the same thing. It's like, oh, are you an Iowa fan? Or are you an Iowa State fan? No. If you Northern Iowa fan? No. What fan are you? It's a Husker, and you hear this collective. Being a veteran, I haven't really Well, maybe I have. I have taken advantage of some of the veterans, some of the benefits that are available, but not exponentially. You know, as soon as I got out of the Navy, medical coverage with the jobs I have, stayed on top of that. Being a part, for a little bit, I was there part of the American Legion right in Bondurant, but I'm not an active member of that anymore. For me, it's more of I'm just honored to be a veteran to serve this country, and also I'm honored to be a part of that group as well. And the benefits was not a big part of it. It was for me it was education and experience and seeing the world, but it wasn't anything to do with what my afterlife was going to be. I didn't go to college after I got out of the Navy. I didn't take a part of that. It was, to me, I wanted to get back to working and raise my family and take care of them that way. So, in hindsight, I wish I did, but I never took advantage of that particular benefit. But it's like I said, it's just been an honor to be a part of that group, to serve the United States and the United States military, and be a part of that. If it wasn't for the Navy, it wouldn't be where I am right now. When I first started out my life, I wanted to be a diesel mechanic, and get into cars and stuff. But I couldn't really, some of the schooling wasn't really good for me. I had a hard time trying to comprehend and remember things and be a part of that. So I said, well, when I joined the Navy, get some education there and come on out. And because of being a boiler technician, it got me to realize, okay, what is a power plant all about? I'm about with anybody else. What's a boiler? Does it heat things up? Yeah, but it heat things up so you can generate electricity, or you can generate heat or steam or something like that. But it was that start out of learning. It was the beginning of that for me, learning what a power plant is all about. So I progressed from the United States Navy and started work for University of Nebraska. Stayed in a power plant operating boilers, getting to know a little bit more about chiller operations for heating and cooling. Get a little bit more of that. And the Navy you didn't have too much cooling to worry about because you circulated the seawater. So I learned a little bit more with that and for that education. So it snowballed it from the university at the power plant to actually building maintenance. And I was a part of the Department of Administrative Services in the power plant there in building maintenance. So getting to know building maintenance. And I was at the Capitol Complex for 17 years. I've been with the state for we're on my 21st year now. So 17 years I was at the Capitol Complex, a little bit in Toledo, but now, being the facility bureau chief here at Iowa Veterans Home, what an honor. I mean, now I get to serve other veterans as well. Because of the education I received in the Navy, progressing, learning more about power plants and steam generation, electrical generation, building maintenance got to me where I am today. And I'm very, I'm sorry, I got goosebumps, and I'm just very honored to be a part of that. Just because of my military service, I would not be where I am today because of that. So, it's great. It really is.
And what kind of a relationship do you have with veterans out here?
Doing the same thing like we're doing right now. That relationship is learning their stories, knowing what they have gone through, and so we can talk about war stories, kind of, but some of these, being able to serve them, being able to understand where they're coming from, because I may not know what someone has been through, like in the Air Force, or someone who has been on the front lines as a Marine, but we know that structure, we know that life, we are all brothers and sisters in the United States military. And serving them now, walking down the hallways here in the Veterans Home, saying hi, how are you doing? Just the daily routine, but it's being there for their ear as well to listen to their story. That's then I can use some of that information. I can talk to my wife or others and I met someone over in the hallways and we talked about this story that their life, what they've had to go through. I mean, I've heard some Vietnam stories that just you just go, I have no clue. I would have no clue that you would that they went through something like this. I can relate to that. I really can't relate to it. My uncle, he died in the Vietnam War, and listen to these stories with some of our Vietnam veterans. It puts it in perspective for me what my uncle had to go through as well. And wow, it's very humbling, very humbling. Being a boiler technician in the Persian Gulf War is way different than being in the jungles of Vietnam. But being a part of that group, that structure, that life, defending our country is really why I serve them as well now. Even though I may be a veteran, but that's why I serve them, is because it is that honor to be a part of that.